Okay, there's going to be some important words in here. One of the words that we've been talking about is conditional. So conditional, and these are the words, and this is the symbol. Here's a mathematical example. If x is equal to 2, then x squared is equal to 4. Our next vocabulary word is converse. Take a minute to write the words, and then take a minute to write the symbol. And here's an example. Notice all I did was exchange the hypothesis and conclusion. So this and this have been reversed. Notice that this now is here and this is now in here. Our next vocabulary word is inverse. The inverse negates both the hypothesis and the conclusion. So I'm going to take this statement right here and I'm going to negate it. So since it says equals, I'm going to write not equals. And since it says equals 4, I'm going to say not equals. And take a minute to write the words. Take a minute to write the symbols. Our last vocabulary word is contrapositive. And a contrapositive in words looks like this. And in symbols it looks like this. So really what it is exchanging the place right here. So you're taking the inverse and you're exchanging the places there. Or you can just think of it going back up to the very beginning, right here. And what we do is we negate both of them and then exchange both of them. Now, equivalent statements are statements that are both true or both false. So, for instance, this is a true statement. True. Now, this is a false statement. Now, why is it false? Because x could have been -2 as well. Now, this one, x does not equal to 2, then x squared does not equal to 4. That's false because a number that does work is -2. So we would call these two equivalent statements because they're both false. If x does not equal to 4, then x cannot be equal to 2. That's a true statement. So since these are both true, we say that these are equivalent statements. Okay, let's see if we recognize the symbols and what to do with them. P is you are a guitar player. Let's go ahead and redo that one. You are a guitar player. And Q is you are a musician. All right, so let me go ahead and write the answer. So I want the conditional statement, which is an if-then statement. If you are a guitar player, then you are a musician. For the converse, remember we're switching places. If you are a musician, then you are a guitar player. For the inverse, remember that we are negating the conditional statement. If you are not a guitar player, then you are not a musician. Contrapositive, you take the original statement and negate them both, just like we did in the inverse, and then exchange places. If you are not a musician, then you are not a guitar player. Now it also asks us to determine whether these are true or false. So if you're a guitar player, then you're a musician. I think you would agree that's a true statement. If you are a musician, then you're a guitar player, and that's false, and that's because I can give you a counter example, and you could be a drummer. Okay, if you are not a guitar player, then you are not a musician. That is also false. We can use the drummer as an example as well. If you are not a musician, then you are not a guitar player, and that's true. You're not a musician. There's no way you could be a guitar player. So these two are equivalent statements because they're both true, and these are equivalent statements right here, these two, because they're both false. All right, biconditional statement. A biconditional statement is when a conditional statement and its converse are both true, you can write them as a single biconditional statement. Now here is the vocabulary word, which you need to go to your notes. You need to write the words and you need to write the symbols. Now here's an example of what they're talking about. This is a conditional statement. Conditional statement. Notice it has a hypothesis and a conclusion, and that is a true statement. Now here is the converse, and notice I switched places right here, and this is also a true statement, so they're both true, the conditional and the converse. Now when we have this, we can kind of merge these two sentences into one. What we do is we take the phrase, put one phrase in the front and one phrase in the bottom, and then we join them together with the phrase if and only if. Now this is a good way to write a biconditional. You can also write the phrases in a different way. You can have this other one in the front and this one in the back, and again joining them with the if and only if. Notice that neither biconditional starts with if. The if and only if are in the middle. Okay, so in definitions, we should be able to write a definition as a biconditional. So both the conditional and its converse will be true. So let me go ahead and take this definition and rewrite it in if-then form. So if two lines form a right angle, then they are perpendicular. If, oops, too big. If two lines are perpendicular, then they form a right angle. Now the first one is the conditional, the second one is the conditional. We can pull them together and put the phrases at one end and the other, and the in-between phrasing will be if and only if. Two lines are perpendicular if and only if they form a right angle. Okay, so this is what they were asking for. They were asking for the biconditional. How do I know that's a biconditional? It has this phrase, if and only if. And it stands for these two sentences, the conditional and the converse. So it's a shorthand notation of writing two sentences. Okay, and here we have another opportunity for you to take a definition and write it as a biconditional. Stop the screencast, see if you can write it, and then resume. Okay, so the answer will be, one phrase is an angle is a right angle if and only if it measures 90 degrees. Again, the phrase if and only if has to be there. Okay, so our last example is, can you take a phrase and write it in all of the ways, the conditional statement, the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. So one more time, stop the screencast, see if you can write all four statements, and then resume. Okay, so the conditional statement will be, if snow is falling, then it is winter. And that's a conditional statement. If we reverse it, if it is winter, then snow is falling. That's an example of a converse. Notice I switched locations. Okay, and then the inverse of the original, if snow is not falling, then it is not winter. And this is an example of an inverse. If it is not winter, then it is, then snow is not falling. Oops. Snow is not falling is an example of a contrapositive. Okay, and this ends the lesson.